When you F around, eventually you're gonna find out. And unfortunately for us, that doesn't happen nearly enough to Donald Trump. But today made up for all of the times that it didn't, because Donald Trump's nonstop attacks on Jerome Powell came to a head when he met with the Fed chair today in a public walkthrough of the new Fed building, and Powell shut him up and fact-checked him to his face so badly that Donald Trump then had to run away from more questions from reporters. It was a brutal takedown of the highest order that we're going to get into, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into the most humiliating takedown of Donald Trump to his face that we've seen in a while, I want to start with some context on the relationship between Trump and Powell that we get from Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
Donald Trump attacked Republican Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
I call him Too Late Powell because he's always too late. I mean, if you look at him, every time I did this, I was right 100%. He was wrong. Maybe I should go to the Fed. Am I allowed to appoint myself, Doug? I don't know. Am I allowed to appoint myself at the Fed? I'd do a much better job.
That's today. That's his attack today. Now, he never said that in his first term as president. Am I allowed to appoint myself? He was crazy, but he wasn't that crazy. He was stupid, but he wasn't that stupid. And then just to prove how he has no grasp of human relations, no grasp of how to persuade someone who you have no control over to do what you want that person to do. The stupidest man speaking into a microphone in Washington today said more about Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve. And because I know Donald Trump's voice dulls the brain of any healthy person trying to make sense of the English language, I am going to read Donald Trump's words exactly as he spoke them, without submitting you to the mind-dulling, mind-fogging experience of the sound of those words coming from Donald Trump's voice. Because in a way, all of the words coming from Donald Trump's voice all the time all sound the same and are just a jumble to our ears so often that we don't really take in each one of them. And sometimes to clearly hear Donald Trump's cognitive confusion at work, you just need to hear the words spoken by someone else, anyone else. So, here's what Donald Trump said about Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Now we have a man that just refuses to lower the Fed rate, just refuses to. And he's not a smart person. I don't think he's even that political. I think he hates me. But that's okay. You know, he should. I call him every name in the book, trying to get him to do something. I've been nice to him. I do it always. I don't know how to sell. I've been so nice to him. Fellas, you wouldn't believe. Let's have dinner. Too late. I call him. Too late. Come on. Too late. Let's have dinner. I do it every way in the book. I'm nasty. I'm nice. Nothing works. He's like a stupid person. That's what he said. That's what he said about how he tries to persuade someone who he has no control over.
There are few people better at communicating the idiocy of Donald Trump than Lawrence O'Donnell. But now I will add to that list Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who just shut Trump up when he was telling a ridiculous lie about the cost of this new Federal Reserve building and all the other lies that he was telling. Just watch him shake his head as Trump lies, then shut him up to his face.
Well, thank you very much. We're looking at the construction, and we're with the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. And it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed. One of the reasons why I wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses, wanted to figure out why.
Yeah. So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about $3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that. Mr.
Yeah,
President.
it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added.
Our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building,
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
40% over.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use. But no, we don't expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off, everyone. So
I don't want to speak too indelicately here, but the man's got some stones. Let's just put it that way. Jerome Powell's got he's not worried. He's not concerned with Donald Trump. And at this point, Trump knows that it would be such a devastating move for our economy for him to fire Jerome Powell. Powell doesn't care about the intimidation anymore. He knows he's safe because Trump will not touch that third rail. I know he's done everything, but understands at this point, according to reporting inside the White House, that he can't go that far. It would be a catastrophe. And so Jerome Powell's like, I'm not going to let this idiot boss me around. I'm not going to let him say anything about me. And when a reporter asked Donald Trump about a comment he had made about Jerome Powell in the past, he didn't answer. He just ran away.
Mr. President, you
Thank
said
you.
that Jerome Powell's a numbskull.
Now, in part, I think that displays just the cowardice of Donald Trump to kind of sulk away, but also for him to not turn around and say, do you know what? I was wrong. This man knows much more about anything than I ever will about anything. This is not even, it's not even apples to oranges. It's an orange to a supercomputer here. I don't want to give Jerome Powell too much credit, like he's the greatest guy in the world, but in the context of this current scenario, yeah, he's been pretty bang on that Donald Trump's policies have been inflationary and rate cuts would not be the correct monetary policy because our president is an idiot destroying the economy at his own whims. And that's something that Elizabeth Warren was asking Jerome Powell about, and he didn't hesitate to tell the truth about how bad the Trump economy is.
The latest numbers show that the Fed is now projecting higher inflation from 2.5% in December now to 3.1%. Higher unemployment from 4.3% to 4.5%. Lower economic growth from 2.1% projected just 6 months ago to 1.4% that you're now projecting. Chair Powell, what has changed in the last 6 months that has caused the Fed to forecast substantially higher inflation, somewhat higher unemployment, and lower economic growth than you did in December?
So some of it is just taking signal from data reports that we've seen. Some of it is people working in the possible effects in the short term of tariffs. We have no view on the wisdom or the longer term effects of trade policy. It's not our job. And by the way, I should add, our forecasts are generally, and in this case, are very, very similar to what outside forecasters
I
are
understand
calling
that.
for.
I'm just using you as the gold standard here. I know it's consistent. But you mentioned tariffs as one of the things that has changed over the last 6 months. You know, Donald Trump has become president and the economy has headed down. Not only does the Fed data now show slower growth and higher prices this year, it sees slower growth and higher prices over the next 2 years as well. And the Fed sees no longer-term boost to the economy or drop in inflation. In other words, no upside to Trump's chaotic tariff war or his other economic policies. So let's talk for just a minute about what's under the hood of the Fed's economic forecast. Chair Powell, I know a lot of different factors influence the trajectory of interest rates. Is one of those factors how quickly the federal debt grows relative to the growth in the economy?
Not directly, no. We don't look at that as a factor that helps us set monetary policy.
So you're not watching the ratio between the amount of the federal debt and the growth in the economy?
No.
How fast the debt is growing and how fast the economy is growing? I think I have quotes from you saying last year, quote, we don't need to pay the debt down. We don't need to balance the budget. We just need the economy to grow faster than the debt. Are you saying something different from that now?
No, when asked and pressed, I pretty much always say the same thing as my predecessors, which is that we're on an unsustainable path. I would not say, though, that we do. I will say this: we do not look at federal financial policy and deficits as something that affects our month-to-month monetary policy decisions.
I'm trying to get the overall projection of what happens in the economy. So, for example, I think you have made the point that if we spend on things like childcare that can boost labor participation and GDP, that may be a time when you offset the debt that you incur to do that. But if there aren't investments like that and we are simply running up the debt, what's the impact of increasing the national debt? So I understand that you don't comment on fiscal policy, but it does affect your job, which is keeping inflation under control and also maximizing employment. If certain policies would materially drive up the national debt and increase the debt to GDP ratio over time, could that make it more likely that we would see inflation, all else being equal?
I mean, theoretically, sure, fiscal policy can add to inflation, but that's again, that's really not something we comment on. We try to stay away from fiscal policy.
I understand you don't comment on it, but I do appreciate your acknowledgement of the math here. You know, the Joint Committee on Taxation projects the one big, beautiful bill would increase federal deficits by $4.2 trillion. According to analysis by the Congressional Budget Office and the Yale Budget Lab, the bill raises the debt to GDP by 24 percentage points. It slows economic growth, it increases inflation, and it reduces real wages.
Donald Trump and Republicans for so long have been making the accusation of Democrats as communists. They're communists who want to control the economy. They want to run things. And now that's what Donald Trump is essentially doing. He's doing his state-run economy with tariffs fluctuating all the time, deciding which broadcast companies can merge based on how their hosts make him feel. Donald Trump wants to run our economy with his ugly orange, I don't want to call it an iron fist, but that's what he wants. Jerome Powell's not going to let him, to whatever extent he can. And Trump only continues to prove his idiocy and economic ineptitude with every dumb thing he says, and we're going to continue to point that out. Maybe I hyped up Jerome Powell too much in this video. He's not the greatest person in the world, but boy, was that funny. We're going to keep covering moments like that on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.